Okay, so just gonna actually maybe okay, Nicole, do you want to start by introducing yourself, and then Shane?
Sure. Hi, I'm Nicole, or Nick, as I go by professionally. Just kind of happened. Um, and I'm an IMD grad from 2018. I graduated 3 years ago. I've been working at Shopify for 6 years to a variety of different roles.
I
Nick,
think your
we
mic
can't hear
stopped
you.
working. We've observed
I can't hear you.
the behavior. Maybe Shane, you can go while she figures out her mic.
Sure. Yeah. Hi. Hi, everyone. My name is Shane. I am a BIT grad from 2020. I've worked at a couple different places, but all around, I'm a pen tester, an ethical hacker. I'm currently working at Bell. I don't know what else to tell you. I'm excited to be here and talk to everybody and look at your resumes.
Thanks, Shane.
All right, we're back. I don't know when I cut off, but yeah, I've been at Shopify for 6 years. I graduated 3 years ago. I've done a little bit of everything: front-end development, content design, UX, you name it. I'm currently working as a technical content analyst and acting as an engineering program manager.
Cool. Thanks. And also we have another panelist, Taryn, who's going to be late because her house flooded apparently. And also me, I guess, but I don't know if I count it. I don't know if I need an introduction. So we'll just begin. So I'm just gonna go through, I'm just gonna pop them up on screen and we can take a look. I'll just be going through in some random order. So I don't know if it's not like we're going to sort alphabetically by fake name. So anybody have any comments on this one just to begin with? Actually, I will make the first comment, which is that in general, I would encourage everybody to submit their resumes in PDF format, because submitting in Word docs, non-Word doc, but like doc format and all these different formats, you can never be sure how it's going to look when it comes across the interviewer or recruiter's desk. So I think definitely make sure you're saving it as a PDF before you upload it, so you can best ensure that you've properly represented your information how you hope to.
Looking at this right off the bat, one of the first things that I'm going to say, and it's probably going to be a bit of a broken record thing by the end of tonight, but the most important thing that I want to see when I was looking at a resume back when I was doing like recruitment and hiring at my previous position, it was your skills, right? So having your skills, the more upfront we can have it, maybe a little bio, tell me something about yourself, and then knowing your technical skill set was the first thing I wanted to see. So when in doubt, if that can be like your first category or your second category, that's a good a positive in my books.
Similar on that front, when I'm looking at resumes, when I'm hiring, I want to know what your skills are directly, just to kind of reference as I read your work experience. So I'm a bit of a fan of sidebar resumes where you list point form, here's all the skills I have, here's all the programs I know. And I can read through and go, oh, that could work well with this, and make those tie-ins. When you have a big block about technical skills, a lot of that information can actually be kept under your applicable projects or inside your work roles where they happened. And that helps you tie together where you learn them and the context behind them.
Sorry, I'm forgetting how to unmute myself. This is also, I've noticed kind of this is the co-op office recommended resume style, which is, I think, a good guideline in terms of the content and the content that you should include, and, in general, some good elements. But a couple of things to consider: everyone who's applying to co-op is applying with the exact same style resume. Maybe add something to help yourself stand out. And personally, like last year, we called this event what the co-op office doesn't want you to know. And we branded it a little bit differently this year because we wanted to encourage non-co-op students to come. But the reason I'm saying that is because some of the things that the co-op office tells you to do, in my opinion, is for their benefit and not the students. For instance, including the availability field helps helps you to get quickly screened out of positions that you should be applying for because you're in the wrong, you don't have the right availability for. But like, I mean, intuitively, if you're applying for a position, they're going to know that you're applying, or they're going to assume that you're applying for the for the length of the position that you're applying for. Yeah, like it could just be removed because it's kind of wasted space at that point. Now, of course, if you need to fill the page properly, then maybe it's worthwhile to include, but just things like that, I think in general. I also think, go ahead.
I actually worked at the co-op office. So my insider knowledge from working there is part of I had a co-op at the co-op office. So what I can tell you about these resumes is the program is designed for the one person who's creating all this to go through them as fast as possible because they have other things on their plate. They give you this template. They want you to learn how to write sentences that are not misspelled and just to write out your resume, basically. The best way to go through about these resumes is to use it to pick your favorite parts of it and then make an entirely new resume that looks a lot nicer. The beauty of being in a program like BIT is like net students and IMD students all together. You can kind of meet people who can give you reviews on like, does this read well from the IMD students? Does this, really showcase my technical proficiencies from the net students? You can kind of share that together. So consider like relying on the people around you to help give you feedback on the kinds of jobs you're looking for.
That's great. That's exactly the kind of community we're trying to foster here. I think, we have plenty to go through, and I'm sure a lot of them will have the same kinds of co-op resume overtones. But something to consider is maybe I like to bold certain keywords of like, let's say this line would be, I did some Java programming and some Android apps. Like I would bold Android and Java, or I'd bold Python, or I'd bold the keyword that corresponds to like the skill, especially if it appears in the job description, just so that the person who's reviewing your resume, their eyes are kind of subconsciously drawn toward those words.
I would even add to that, like these here, we have these like sentences where it's like, I, as someone who's reviewing your resume, will now have to read through to actually extract the value that I'm looking for, right? Like I'm gonna have to read that you coded Android apps and games in Java during blah, 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 which is more of technical experience that you've had. But what I want to know is, can you use Java to do, or are you familiar with Android programming, right? That can be like one or two words or something really nice and short that I can glance at and immediately know, okay, we got Java, we've got Android development, we've got Python, and I can kind of just like check those boxes off. Because oftentimes when I'm looking for a candidate or I'm looking to hire somebody, we want to make sure they have certain fundamental skills, right? That we can kind of check off a list. So having your technical skills up front, really crystal clear like that, can help kind of put you into the yes pile easier.
Yeah, I love a word dump in which you just list every skill or something you've ever touched in your life and say, yeah, I could probably figure this out. I'm very okay with that. If you've opened up Photoshop once, I'm going to count you as proficient because you have more understanding of it than half the people I'm going to be talking to. But it's that little bit of access, a little bit of experience in different areas. It's you don't realize how valuable just like even one course on like a subject matters when it comes to hiring.
So what I've seen a lot of people do is have maybe like personally what I have is maybe like a matrix of keywords that is divided into categories of how proficient I feel I am in these categories. For instance, like beginner, intermediate, expert kind of thing. And just having like, let's say Android or Java or Python or whatever the keyword is. And then because you're kind of conveying the context of these skills in the other, in like the other sections where you're talking about the experiences, like then you're going to talk about that time you built that Android app. And it's like, you're conveying the context then. So it's kind of redundant. Okay,
Here's
why don't we
another
move on
sec.
because
Oh,
wait,
you don't
yeah,
mind. There's one
what's
other
up?
thing I wanted to say.
Sure.
So I'm looking, for example, here at the last skill where you talked about configure to maintain Cisco enterprise networks. Here's a really good opportunity where you can dive in deeper to the technical components and tell me less of the context, right? Like I would want to know, do you know routing and switching, right? Do you know different protocols of routing protocols, right? Do you have experience on different types of router switches? Were you working with an ASA? Were you working with, like that's the kind of stuff I want to know, rather than the big scale, which I'll find out, right? When I look at your experience, you'll tell me this is where you were doing Cisco networking, great. But like, what specifically were you doing? Were you, what protocols, what technologies were you having your hands on?
And also, what's the scale, right? Like, was this 10 devices? Was this 2 devices? Like, if you're operating with 8, 10 devices, like that's kind of a impressive number. You want to be quantifying where you can. Cool. Okay, we got to move on because there's like a lot more to go through. Is this okay? Zoom level? Do I need to zoom in more?
I took notes beforehand, so if anyone feels like they've missed
Somebody's
anything,
prepared.
I'm happy to chat with them. That's what I do. For this one, I have a lot of repetitive stuff for the IMD students. I'm not in net. I can't always advise as much as Shane can on these, but that's why it's good to have specialty in this area. General IMD advice, PDFs, designing your resume puts you on top of the pile when you're applying to anything design, UX, UI. You have to have something designed. It's very important. It shows that you care enough to put that work into your resume. So important step. I know a lot of people probably just did like the co-op stuff, and it's easy to kind of edit and submit as a text, but make sure you take some time, look at like the user experience of your resume as something you want to use as almost a stepping stone for your portfolio. If it's unclear, the colors, or like it doesn't help you guide the reader in the way you want to, they'll pick up on that when you're applying to a UX position. And that's, you want someone who's good with UX in UX. So this is your first chance to make an impression. Overall, really good. I love one-page resumes. I try to cut down enough information that you're giving a tip, a bit of a like, this is what I did, very clearly, just like succinct message. And here's the skills I gained from it. So I think a lot of this could be cut down and kind of summarize a bit more to make it a bit shorter.
Yeah,
Something else is, I've never interviewed someone where I cared about their grades. So I know the school tells you to put that. You don't have to tell anyone your grades. Unless they ask for it, just don't even bother.
And she's not trying to say that B+ is bad, just for the record.
No. Oh, I was like a C- student, I think the majority of my time through IMD. But I got nice jobs because I showed that I had the skill set. Your grades don't correlate to your worth, especially in employment.
I will say though, I do like the way the technical skills are laid out here a little bit more. It is in sentence structure, but I immediately I look at this, I see HTML, CSS. You're familiar using GitHub, right? PHP, SQL, Ajax. It doesn't take me long at all for that all to just kind of jump out at me. So that's really well done.
And I do like
I did notice you have
ahead.
skills up top, and then you have technical skills later on as well. You only need to have them listed once.
You're saying not to break it into design skills and technical skills.
The second page, if you scroll down.
Oh, sorry.
There's another set, I believe, that had technical skills, unless something go to your resume. But maybe not. All right.
Looks like maybe you're talking about this like bolded text
yes.
here. That
you can kind of keep it all kind of together in one place to save from repeating yourself.
I've received the feedback personally that people can sometimes think that if you repeat things too much, you don't have enough to say, kind of thing, and maybe you're trying to fill space.
I think a big part of design jobs with IMD is very much saying how can I present this as quickly and efficiently as possible, as often seen as a pro when you're going into design work. So that's something to consider. If you're going into programming, this kind of resume will already stand out because it's designed. But if you're going into a UX, if you're looking into a UX career, it's very big on the content design of what you're doing as well.
Do you want to elaborate on like content design? Like, is that how things are laid out? How
things are laid out, what words you choose to employ, what kind of sense of action you're asking. For example, saying like designed, I designed this. Are you keeping that same writing style throughout your entire resume? Can you maintain and follow structures when they ask you to follow these UX naming structures?
So really treating it as like a product that you're trying to produce, and not just a collection of things about you.
Exactly. Your resume is your product. It is your portfolio that you send off. It is your first page.
Okay. I just want to make clear, I did not anonymize these. These are other people on the exec team who maybe chose these names.
Oh, they're fun. My nitpick here was the order for your volunteering was your oldest to newest. You want to always put your newest thing on the top. Don't worry, even if it's less applicable, it just shows that you're still actively engaging in communities.
Reverse chronological order.
Yeah.
So this is one of those really good examples where like technical skills being at the front would be a huge asset to you, right? Because while you clearly do have work and volunteer experience, not all of it, or the majority of it, isn't relevant experience to the job you're trying to achieve, right? And so it being there shows that perhaps you have the capability to be an employee and a team member and all these important things. What's really gonna kind of ramp you up, and the part that the only real part here that's gonna help you is your technical skill set, right? Them seeing that you can do the job that you're applying for. So moving that up to the front would definitely be critical on a resume like this.
Yeah, the order, it really depends on your work experience, what goes first. If you have any sort of relevant work experience, I suggest putting that up there. And even sometimes I just stop describing some of my work experience. I'll have it on the resume, but I just don't bother explaining, what it was anymore, because it's no longer relevant to the job I'm applying to.
Absolutely.
I like to have a personal rule of thumb to never do more than 5 bullet points, like 4, maybe 5 in a row. Not saying that you have to get rid of a bullet point, but to, subdivide this into different sections, potentially maybe coding and then maybe optical or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I did not make these names.
I love the names. They're really fun.
Never mind. I made the names.
Yeah. Yeah, don't stop having fun when when you're about to graduate. This is your chance to get really goofy with stuff.
So again, I'm not sure the format that this was submitted in. I'm not sure if it's maybe our fault that when we were anonymizing it, maybe it got messed up.
Yeah, I'm not focusing too much. I assume that we've already made notes on how format kind of works. If you have questions about format, feel free to screenshot something and blur things out and send it my way after. I'm more than happy to help you look at that, whether it kind of your flow of information fits. I love it when people list Carleton and Algonquin separately, because you do get a degree and a diploma. And a lot of employers will think that means you did 7 years with a schooling in 4 or 5. And so they go, wow, what a genius. You never explain why that's different. Never. All right. Let them believe it. It is the best kept secret in our degree.
And also again here, right? Reverse chronological order.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You don't actually have to include high school. Most people just assume you've graduated from that. So don't even worry about it. Unless you think the person who's interviewing you went to the same high school and has incredible high school pride.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, if you've been to university, you've probably been to high school, or you've at least had an equivalency. So nobody really cares to know if you've been or I would also say, so I see in your skills, you've included both soft skills as well as technical skills. I would definitely, I think that maybe this is just me, but on your resume, I'm interested in your technical skills. I'm going to interview you for your soft skills. right? I'm going to figure out more about you and whether or not I think you're a good fit for the team. And I'm going to figure out more about, you know, how you communicate during the interview process. And so I don't know if they necessarily need to be intermingled this way. If they are, I'd probably prioritize the technical skills, at least for like a networking type job, or a job coming out of net. But maybe some of the other panelists disagree with me. I'm not sure.
When it comes to skills, well, first of all, always group them technical skills first, and then your soft skills later. Soft skills are hard in the sense that you can't quantify them easily and be like, yeah, I know this one thing. You can be like, strong interpersonal skills. What does that mean, right? That's different in every job. Things that are good to put there, like leadership experience, public speaking, things that a lot of people do not like to do. That's where you go, no, I'm willing to do that, which is great when you're hiring for a role that has people communications. And someone says leadership in that, you're like, well, they're going to be fine talking to customers. That's what you want to give.
Not just make empty threats.
Yeah. If you did that, I'd be pretty impressed too, not gonna lie.
This format is very dense.
Oh, this is the same one we
one
just
as
looked
the
at.
last one. Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm trying my best.
Perfect.
There we go.
All right. I love a summary at the start. I'm just going to start with that. I love a summary. This is a very long summary. There's some really good key points in it that I think you can focus on. First of all, anytime you speak more than one language, make that a focal point of your resume. That is hugely problematic in tech, that they only have people who speak English. It is a great selling point and something you should be really proud of. So always make that really apparent somewhere. Use the summary to say what you want to work in, I would say, and then everything else can be put in like your later areas.
That's a great observation.
If your goal is like, I want to be in leadership one day, so be like interested in leadership in UX, say that. Because that helps them say like, oh, it's a path for growth, this person in our company.
Shane, do you have anything to add?
I noticed that this one actually has extracurricular stuff on it, which I think is good. I think one of the things that's really, really important, especially in fields like the one I'm working in, which is cybersecurity, it's a field where it's almost all a passion project, right? Cybersecurity, like everything that we knew 5 years ago, is pretty much obsolete. So for fields that are very quickly moving like that, demonstrating on your resume that you use your own time to pursue projects or activities that relate to it is a really big sign. So I do like seeing that there's some sort of extracurricular category here.
I also noticed this one has technovation. That is huge in the tech community. Always bring that up if you've participated or done anything with technovation. Most employers, at least in Ottawa, also have a technovation branch where they will like have volunteers and run things. So by having experience in it, you're more likely to, one, meet people who previously ran it with you, but two, they're going to want to bring you in to help with that program. Things like that. I have like a, and they have a really good bearing on how you'll fit in with a company experience on top of just a role.
Great. I don't know if this is just a formatting thing, but 3 pages is, you want to keep it to, you want to ensure that your resume is full pages, whether that's 1 or 2, but no other permutation of pages or content length allowed.
Ooh, one last thing with this one is we need to reopen it, but sometimes I see people who are downplaying their skill sets, being like, well, I know a little bit of HTML, CSS. We don't have to know that. Just say you know it. You've used it before. Like, you don't have to be the most proficient, especially when it's like HTML, CSS. A lot of that's Googling. So when it comes to roles like that, say like, I've made projects with it, and let your portfolio speak for it. Kind of where you're at with that.
Yeah, and I think don't sell yourself short.
Yeah.
Like let them tell you no. it's up to them to make sure that you know what you know before they hire you, right? I mean, don't blatantly lie on your resume, but
Yeah. But I think HTML, CSS, you'd be surprised how proficient you are.
This
or
one
how
looks great.
unproficient professionals are.
Oh,
True.
absolutely.
Very true. I think this one looks fantastic. I like that right off the bat. I can see the two most important things to me, which are your skills and your experience, right? And that is right there. It's clearly organized. I can identify protocols and like languages if I need to. I see that there's tools right away. I think this is a nice layout. I like it a lot.
It's simple, it's effective. I'm curious if this is all the content you wanted to fit on your resume, because I mean, there's a lot of experience, but I notice a lot of people have like volunteer or like applicable projects that you don't seem to have room for. So one of the trade-offs with designing your resume is trying to balance what you want to include on it. If you had the opportunity, I would include something that gives a bit more insight about you. This resume would encourage me to go look at your portfolio to see if I can get a better sense of who you are when it comes to hiring, because I like kind of seeing like a little bit more about what your interests are, like kind of how you're going to fit in with a team, especially when you're doing creative work.
I think one thing I'd like to highlight for other people watching is the way that they quantify or qualify their work experience, like by putting decreased operation time by 98.8%, or resulting in 2,000 plus responses from students, blah blah blah. That really shows like the impact. You want to highlight the impact that you've created or generated. And of course, also with these I mean, some of the other resumes we looked at, the people don't have necessarily the work experience to be like showing off. But this person has a lot of relevant work experience. So I like that they've highlighted that instead of, a lot of the other stuff that you have to like cling to when you don't have as much work experience. So this one, same kind of thing that I was just talking about. I was looking at this earlier and I remember this. You have a lot of like very relevant work experience, but it's kind of like once you have a lot of work experience that's highly relevant to the field you're trying to enter, your degree and like what you did in school becomes a lot less important. It's sometimes important to include that you have a degree, but I would say in general, like if let's say you're going to field of cybersecurity, but you come from a business background, if you have 5 years of cybersecurity experience, they don't care about what you did in school, right? So personally, I would maybe de-escalate or de-emphasize the school stuff, maybe putting it toward the bottom, and bring up the skills and the work experience higher.
I agree. I
I
think this is actually
never had to submit a grade page. I avoided every application that involved a grades page because of my kind of bad grades. And it worked out fine because no one really cares about your grades, just that you can do the work.
totally. I even think reaching back to what Keen was saying earlier, I think a lot of what you have there actually is only going to hurt you, right? These are all like limiting factors, right? You're saying that you're only available at this time, so that could get your resume off the table if that doesn't line up for them, or your graduation date is. I think that if let them kind of fall in love with you first and want you for your skills and who you are, and then only then when they find out that, oh, it might not line up, they're willing to make it work because they already like you. But if they see this right off the bat and it doesn't line up, they're not going to waste their time, right? So it can only hurt you to have this kind of information up front.
Give them as little ability to screen you out as possible.
Totally.
Although sometimes it is actually like useful to be intentionally vague, but you don't want to do that at the expense of like actually relevant information about you that you think could actually help you. It's
something I want to bring up about this resume is that it looks like you're pulling in two different directions with it. I think this is really good to talk about. You have work experience, and in this list, it shows that 1, you do software development, Two, you do sound, like sound and audio. Both of those are really cool. You will rarely find a job that has you as a software developer plus musician doing audio tips. So what you should do is split 2 resumes. Have one for your audio design and one for your programming. You reference the skills across both and go, oh, I also have programming work. Check out my GitHub. And on the audio one, you go, or like, on your audio one, and then on your programming one, you go, I also do audio work. Check out my, wherever you host your audio projects. And that lets you kind of let them know, like, I have multiple skill sets, but it lets you focus on the application.
And just one last point here. I think it's a lot of text. Like, I don't know if there's maybe a way to, and maybe this is when you're tailoring your resume more towards audio or programming or whatever, but maybe adding some negative space and taking out some of the less relevant details can help highlight the more relevant details.
Definitely. I think we had to dig, a little bit to get to even like the technical skill set here. Not only was it like low down, but it's like, there's so much text here that like, it would take me time to figure out whether or not I think you have the fundamental skills to even consider reading the rest of it.
This is what we talked about earlier, and this is going to be a recurring theme, is have your technical skills very easy to skim. So I can go, yes, no, yes, yes, no. Like, these are applicable. That's all I want to be able to do. And then I want to cross-reference that with everything else. So if you make it really easy for me to do that and kind of like look at this list and go, yeah, that makes sense. You don't have to include it everywhere. That's going to change. Each resume is going to be slightly different. There's no one size fits all for each job posting or for each person you're presenting yourself. But in order to make sure I read this, I don't want to feel like I'm losing focus as I go along, right?
Cool. I just wanted to introduce our 4th panelist who joined and I didn't notice, so I'm very sorry. Taryn, if you want to introduce yourself to the class.
Hey, how's it going? Yeah, absolutely. Sorry for coming in late. I was telling Kian right before I jumped in that I walked into my house to a little flood, so was dealing with that. But it's good to be here and talk to everyone. So I'm Taryn. I graduated from the IMD program in 2017. Since then, I was working primarily in visual effects and project management in Montreal. So I was doing a lot of a variety of different films, actually. I won't even get into what kinds. Was doing that for a few years. And then most recently, I've actually relocated back to Vancouver, where I'm from, and I'm working at EA right now. So getting into the gaming side of things a bit. But then, yeah, exclusively my work tends to fall under project management, which is an interesting one for the BIT program because it's not necessarily something that people tend to go into the program to go into, but I find that the students are very well trained to get into these kind of roles because we know so much about so many different things. So if anyone's interested in that kind of thing, happy to chat more about it. But yeah, I'll jump in wherever you want me to jump in, but keep on going.
Well, yeah, we've just been going through the submitted resumes, and it's very informal, casual, super cash. Again, we can see the co-op overtones here.
I noticed that as well when I was giving a glance through.
Personally, I just don't like the dash bullet points and having it not like bump out the next line. I don't know how you explain that, but like the bullet points could be clearer, and they're also really long. They're like 3 lines. So
I mean, I'm not IMD. Don't ask me to design anything. That would be terrible. But if this is for a design resume and you kind of want to, as Nick was saying earlier, you want to show that you can design something, design this. Make that first impression.
I remember I couldn't find my co-op job in my first co-op placement. So I went to go see my co-op advisor and she said, why are you using the default resume? I thought all you IMDs just threw those out. But it's not like they ever tell you that. They just assume you'd figure it out on your own through using their portal. So very importantly is whatever you've made just for the co-op program, you are not using that at all. It will not help you in finding a job within the actual industry you want to work in. work with each other, like help look at each other's resumes, give them feedback. It makes it so much better and you all come out stronger from it.
Yeah, all the other
Anything-
comments I'd have for this one are comments I've made before, right? Technical skills should be clear. The student information, you know, is hurting you more than it's helping you, stuff like that. Nothing new to say for this one.
Okay, we'll move on. Did we look at this one already?
I feel like we have under a different, wasn't this?
Oh yeah, we did.
gingerbread?
We did. It was different. Yes, it was. I do want to say though that I don't know if this was because of our formatting or whatever happened here, but it is weird to see like joint like alone on a resume. Okay. Oh, we looked at this one too. Man, what happened? This one I saw and I really liked.
Mhm.
In fact, I don't really have much to say about it, except I want to highlight that they're quantifying their impact, quantifying or qualifying their impact, like 100 people on Zoom, 10,000 monthly sale goal, 102 stores. And then the other really nitpicky thing, and again, I should not be talking about design, but I will anyway, because everyone's listening to me. I don't like that the purple bar extends all the way to the bottom of this section and this section, but not volunteering, soft skills toolkit, and design skills. To me,
Yeah.
that's like an inconsistent detail, but I'm maybe a little too neurotic to see good designs.
I would say, yeah, especially at the top, you say you want to work. If you go scroll up to the top, I love this. I love the statement of intent of UI UX designer. You've already decided that's what you are. And I love that. I love that kind of confidence when I'm looking at resumes. It fills me with joy. You have to make sure that the UX UI experience of your resume matches what you want to sell. So just get feedback from people in your area. Exactly. Like, you know, like you said, like, oh, that could go down further. Listen to their feedback, watch someone read it and see where they struggle to follow where the next, you know, where their eyes should go, and like use this as your platform, you know, to present your best self.
I would add to this as well, kind of the ordering of the different sections is a little bit off to me. Your education and your volunteering experience are pretty low priority to me compared to your work experience and what you've decided to put at the bottom, which are your technical skills, which as we've mentioned are the most important things. So if we could kind of turn it on its head a little bit, I think you have a really cool resume here.
We could transpose that row into a
Transpose that.
column.
Yeah, there you go.
One also thing I really love though is seeing like sock and buskin theater. A lot of those things, they might seem like they aren't really related to your experience in school, but a lot of those are great jumping points for an interview. When I interviewed at Shopify, the person who I interviewed with had also done the engineering musical. And so that was a huge part of how I got hired, was the fact that, oh, I love that. That's so fun. You're going to be fun to work with. You don't know what it does help though, in the sense that you're like, okay, you're willing to try new things. Like I know the kind of people you can talk with. So include those things. They might not seem like a lot, but there's a level of commitment that comes with being involved in outside events and programs, as well as it helps have a better understanding of who you are.
Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, go to the next one. Now this one I did see and think, at first I was like, what is going on here? But then I thought about it more and I thought, you know, this is a really well optimized resume for a FSWEP, Government of Canada scanning keyword tool. I think, again, we talked about that profile being maybe a little bit more about what you want to do rather than how you can contribute to the company. And then the rest of it is all about how you can contribute to the company.
I think the personal skills section there is a little bit weird to me. You have some technical skills and some soft skills in there. There's no kind of clear boundary, right? We're talking about, on one hand, your organizational skills and your problem solving skills, but also that you do IP networking and, you know, RIP and BGP. Nick was saying, made a really good point earlier that like, your soft skills are really hard to quantify, right? Writing them down like this, it doesn't translate through. Most people reading, oh, you're you got great problem solving skills. How would I know that from reading this? I'll figure that out in the interview. Crank those technical skills up here, right? You have a pretty solid list. You do list everything. It's definitely like FSWEB oriented. You kind of list everything, you know, but I'd say it's better list everything than not everything. So yeah, you have a couple pages down, you have this. Yeah, I would bring this closer to the top and the other one maybe lower down.
Totally agree. And one quick little point is we're not a B-end, right? So some people might actually be looking for that because they actually need a professional engineer who can like sign off on bridges.
I'm
feedback?
not familiar with what the FSWEP kind of government profiles look like. To me, this one just immediately jumps out as needing to be a bit more concise. At 4 pages, that comes in as a bit of a shock to someone who would come in and want to do kind of quick reviews of a pile of resumes. So that'd be my take, is wanting to kind of find ways to tighten that up a bit. There's a lot of good information in here, so potentially not everything is needed in as much detail. Like I know sometimes people are putting kind of their school projects, depending on what jobs you're applying for, maybe that's super relevant. If you've got work experience here to back up kind of the job you're going for, maybe that's something you can trim down on. I'm not totally sure. But I would just think about how this could be brought down a bit in length.
A
I
good
also
option
have
for resume writing is to have what I call the mega resume, where you write everything you could possibly ever want to include on a resume that is up to date, relevant, and you keep that, you know, current. And then you just take your favorite parts and you plug it into your template that you send out. That way you don't rewrite things, you have it all there. This looks like a mega resume. You could take a lot of these key points and apply to a job, and you would be fine with, oh, even just a portion of this information.
Yeah, I also have, I don't know, I learned this in like grade 10 careers class. So I don't know if it's like really relevant, but I think you're like never supposed to use personal pronouns outside of the like summary section. But that could just be a rule
As
that
long
they
as you
teach you.
maintain consistency, I don't think most interviewers care. Like, it's not a huge deal. It's if you're jumping between different tenses, try and simplify that. Make it really easy for it to all be read in like one go.
Cool. So again, this one, I mean, we have our skills and it's very non-technical. I think next time we should probably like remove people's references information.
I don't even think you really need to include references generally on a resume. I've never had it come up where someone was asking me, or when I was doing hiring, where you know, someone not having references on a resume made a difference to me. It kind of just eats up space. If I want your references, you know, I'll ask. I'm more interested in reading the resume to figure out who you are and whether or not we should have more conversations.
If you're an IMD,
Yeah.
you can be really, really sneaky and just put like, you know, like testimonials on your portfolio page, which are your references, but you don't have to give any more details. So they're like, oh, I think they don't, most times they'll see that and they'll go, I don't need to ask if that's true or not. So hot tip, if you have a portfolio.
It could be true though. You could like actually publish real information.
Yeah, you publish what your managers have said about you, or you ask them for a little testimonial, and then they can always, you know, back that up, but it does save you time.
I don't know what this person's goal is. I mean, they did state that their objective was to gain a part-time job to gain experience and to assist her or him financially. So I guess maybe they might not be looking for a technical role, which is kind of what our event is about today.
I kind of have an issue with that kind of objective there. I feel like you should really talk about what you want to do specifically, right? I don't think you need to be telling people that you have financial motivations behind getting a job. I think we all kind of have financial motivations behind getting a job. You know, you could talk about specifically, I want to gain experience doing what, right? You know, I don't even think you really need to mention your education there, right? I really think maybe if you want to add a summary, talk about yourself and explain that like you want to work as X, Y, or Z, that's okay. But I don't necessarily think the objective section here is doing what you want it to.
If you are someone in IMD who, like me, had no idea what they wanted to do, but just wanted a paycheck, and you're applying to jobs, a great way to word that is, I'm interested in being a part of multidisciplinary teams. I'm interested in experiencing, you know, I want to solve multiple types of problems. Just say like, you want to try it all to figure out what you like. And that's a very okay and acceptable answer. The main thing is you aren't saying, I have no care to be here. Yeah, multidisciplinary is the fanciest word you can put on a resume for IMD, because what is taking one class in every subject?
Okay, let's move on to this next anonymous resume. This one I did see, and I really liked how they highlighted everything very concisely in categories. Again, we talked about maybe adding the qualifier of that skill, like, are you good at it? Are you just basic in it, etc. And I like that the relevant work experience is close to the top.
Yeah, I think the order of this is great. I think it's clear to me to know like what you've done, what you're good at, or what you have experience with. I can, you know, we can talk about how good you are at it, like after. I like that it's well laid out. It definitely pops out to me. I really like how this looks so far.
I think nitpick at the top, you don't need to have portfolio website and then your portfolio links all separated out. They can see that on your portfolio website if you make a nice little header. It's great to know that you have all of that. You really want to, depending on what job you want to focus on, if you're applying for a 3D modeling job, they're going to go to your website and they're just going to go to 3D modeling on their own. So you don't have to worry about putting all of those at the top there. It gives you a little bit more space.
Also, again, we talked about like, in maybe this is more the case with IMD, it's like the product that you're giving as your resume is like the product that you're offering, right? And if you want to show that maybe you're really detail oriented, you have the orange go all the way to the end. I don't know if that's like a technical term, but
it's tiny details. And yeah, just double check your details on your designs. Keep it consistent. Have someone else look at it. After a while, you'll be looking at your resume and nothing makes sense anymore. You need fresh eyes on those.
I like the right justification of the dates. And again, I like the de-escalation of the education as it becomes less important.
I think this is a really nice, overall, really nice resume.
Any other final remarks about this one?
When it comes to software and languages, this is, you know, one of those little things that if you're like, well, I want my other experience to come up a bit more, it works when you have a 2-page resume. If it starts to bleed into 3 pages, consider summarizing things like Adobe Creative Suite. You get this, you know, you can list like Photoshop, Illustrator, Premiere, InDesign really shortly instead of having Adobe, Photoshop, and try to kind of squeeze it into like a sidebar or somewhere where it just gives you a bit more space. Don't be worried about making those small because they're skimmable.
Or can you, I don't know how different they are, but can you just say Adobe Creative Suite? Or are there like so many other programs that other people would be like, we need this one?
Those are the big ones. So I think you might be able to, depending on the job. You can also write HTML/CSS. People usually pair them up. Rarely do you hire
like
someone to just do HTML.
You definitely could just say front end development. Like that would be, I'd be okay with that.
Cool, I'm moving on. I think these ones, by the way, are maybe late submissions that our panelists have not had the chance to look at. So these are fresh opinions, hot takes.
Right off the opinion tree.
I'm nasty and I never include my address. People don't need to know where I live for me to apply to a job. So that's another way to save space on these resumes, is when people are including like that kind of information. You don't have to, for the most part, especially with most companies now having to allow work from home. Where you're located is less of a problem.
I do overall like what I'm seeing here. I think it looks pretty good. I like that your skills are here and you've outlined them. The tools that you're familiar with is interesting. I think it's interesting that you're going into detail on each of the different skills. I feel like you could probably, I'm not sure if I think it's like an advantage to have them categorized like this. It definitely does jump out to me, although it feels almost like they could also just be like 1 or 2 sentences each, and that could take up less space. It doesn't seem like your resume is like begging for space though.
I get the impression the
experience
person
section?
probably doesn't have experience.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't
that's
realize
what I
it
was
was 2
thinking as
pages.
well.
My bad.
That's
My bad.
so that's what I wanted to see. I would put
Yeah.
this higher up.
Yeah, that should be first, I think.
Especially with like if you have like Git projects and stuff.
And then to Shane's
your
point, I would then
abilities-
say you could probably compress higher up. Sorry, Nicole.
Oh, no, go for it. Your abilities section, you don't, I feel like a lot of that has like some broad themes. You could instead put your skill set in this sidebar and then like put that next to your experience, and then it would all kind of like tie together, or next to your projects.
Totally.
So move this to the first page next to the
Yeah, I
skills
think
section.
availability can be at the very bottom.
Yeah.
I think
assume
availability is
you're
not
available if you're
necessary.
applying.
I also agree. If we take out availability, you kick education down, so your side column has your skills, and then the main area shows your experience. And the skills is just the keywords of the different technologies that you're familiar with and the programs that you use. I think that would be really good. Otherwise, I do like how this looks.
Mhm.
And just quick note, availability is spelled wrong.
It's true.
But I do like that the names on both pages too, because, and again, this is maybe an archaic pre-pandemic thing where like you actually hand them out in person. If somebody loses the first page, then they don't have your contact information and they're like, this person's second page looks really good. They can't contact you.
Yeah, you have some really good experience. That should definitely be the first thing I get to see.
I agree. Okay, moving on.
Mhm. This is the first designed net student resume I've seen, so kudos to you for putting some thought into like your layout. It's a tiny little thing, it feels like, but it makes a difference in that it feels like you put some, that little bit of extra effort in.
Well, let's be nice because we're not known for having great design skills.
It's a good thing there's a whole society dedicated to introducing you to people who might have design skills, huh?
You know, I came here to do that and I'm hoping I've been effective, but I'm not sure that I have.
Well, I think Taryn and I have both had that experience as well, so don't worry.
I like that we have certifications on this one though. That's a really nice touch. Certs can mean a lot when you're walking into an interview on a technical topic. It just kind of goes to show, clearance also is a big plus. It goes to show, oh, that's interesting. So, I would want to ask, it says that you have your JNCIA DevOps, that you've taken the training, but like you haven't taken the exam. That I'm not sure I would include if you have not taken the exam on a resume. So you'd want to definitely clarify that. But in general, if you do have certs, please include them. That's really good.
This is Shane's domain, but I do like you having awards because you're like, look at what I've done. This is important to me. So like, good for you. I like confidence when I read resumes.
I think the layout's good and the prioritization of like what the categories are. I think that looks good.
Mm-hmm. also important. Anything like women in STEM mentor, anything like that, huge in tech jobs. Always put those on your resume. You will find room for it. Because every job has a program that does the same thing, and they're gonna think, oh, maybe they'll also be involved in this.
If whoever's resume this is in this meeting right now, please feel free to reach out to me directly. Just by the way.
Yeah, I also just wanted to add as a last thing, like I like the bolding, like I mentioned earlier, of like the keywords that you want to highlight about a particular posting. I think that's really really good. This might be our last one. Milkman.
This is a perfect, great professional summary. It is short. It is very clear. I would like it to be a bit more like, this is what I intend to do at your company, but overall, very good direction. I also love the separation of Carleton and Algonquin. Yes, let people think you've done 7 years of school. Never explain it.
In this case, the person actually has completed like another technical degree.
Add another Algonquin point. You deserve it.
Again, we talked about the availability being not necessarily necessary. I do like the, being able to see the skills so quickly and being able to pick them out.
Clarify bilingual in what?
Mm.
In general, if it's French, that's great in government work. If it's like Arabic or Japanese, all those will depend. Those will all affect jobs differently depending on where you're applying. So it's good to like list out the languages directly.
I think even if you take bilingual, you throw in this column, so it's like in the non-technical column, and then you have like a technical and non-technical column. It kind of clarifies what each column is about, which is, I was going to be like, oh, you should subdivide, but then I realized it's almost already subdivided.
Also, when it comes to your soft skills, I love a soft skill list. Things like team player. Yeah, I hope you are if I'm hiring you. So you really don't have to include things that would be like the baseline for a job in terms of like, if you are a team player, you probably won't get hired. So that's really worth considering. Like, what puts you makes you above the bar.
So what we were talking about earlier too is like highlighting that work experience. Like this person has tons of work experience. They worked at Bell Canada doing all sorts of analyst stuff. They worked at
I love that you included your promotion at CBRE. That is like technician 1 to 2. I find that fun. I don't know if that's relevant, but like confidence again kind of shows to me in that. But
and also like commitment to the thing. You're not just doing it for fun. It's something that you're more serious about and you're interested in developing and progressing. But what I was saying is that it's like these are electromechanical technician for the Ottawa light rail train. Like these are super relevant work experiences that you could definitely put higher up. Like, I mean, maybe not super relevant, but at least partially relevant. It's interesting. Like Nick was saying earlier, it's like a good jump off point for an interview. Jump off. I hope that's not something bad that I just said. I'm not sure if that was right.
Might just be Google Docs, putting a line on an extra page. I'm going to chalk it up to Google Docs, but just something to watch also with formatting and looking at length of resumes. Also on this one, some of it, the experience, I agree with what's been said. I think the experience is super valid and I like seeing the different roles and everything. Maybe a little bit texty. I don't know if that can be not made more concise, but something about it right now, when I just look at it, it looks like a lot of text. Would be my one thing.
Yeah, maybe fewer bullet points and a little more spacing in between bullet points. But also could just be the Google Doc importing Microsoft Word document.
Yeah,
So
possible.
give them the benefit of the doubt. Cool. Any final remarks from anybody?
No, I feel like looking at this, I'm like, wow, someone's very competent, has a lot of experience, which is always great to see. After a while, if you see one, you want to include a job and like you don't think any of the experience is there, just include the name of it and be like, the rest of my other experience covers most of what I did here anyways. That's what I assume when I just see a title with no information under it. It was either you've done it again better later, or it's just not relevant.
Cool. So kind of want to transition from resume review into like opening the floor for Q&A. I know a lot of students are probably eager to ask our awesome panelists some great questions because they were in our shoes just a few years ago and now they're all very successful. And finally, I just want to say before anybody leaves, because obviously people are going to leave because people always do. Anyways, we will be sending out a survey. If somebody on my team can like drop it in the chat of like a little bit of a, let us know how we did kind of thing. Tell us how we can improve for next time or other events. Okay. The floor is open.
There's a lot of
chat. Danny had a question in here. Yeah. Danny, so I caught yours asking for advice for students looking at more of the film industry positions. I'll just read this out. For one, as a second year IMD student, I mostly really have UI UX project experience. Would you know what film or VFX positions what positions look for in project skills? So for sure, getting kind of more into the 3D space of things is something that VFX or animation really look for. The program has changed since I was in it. So I know there's like kind of different streams now and potentially more 3D specific stuff. To be honest, I don't know exactly what it looks like anymore. But I think it was headed in a really good direction when I was leaving in terms of kind of building more of that in naturally. Lots of different areas you can go into. One of the things that I came into IMD saying, I want to work in VFX, and that's all I knew. Got my first internship in VFX, and I was like, I have no idea what any of this is. There were like 10 different disciplines, departments of what that is, and then I didn't do any of them. I went into the project management side instead. So I can definitely chat with anyone one-on-one about that in more detail, kind of in another setting. But overall 3D stuff, Maya generally is huge and will get you, that'll open doors in any kind of 3D thing, whether that's gaming, whether that's VFX, whether that's animation. So dabbling in that and just exploring kind of what makes up VFX and what the different elements are. Just as a super quick overview, it breaks down into, you can have like animation specific. There's people who just do lighting work, which a lot of photographers tend to like. Similar to compositing, that's pulling all the final images together. Effects is a nice one for IMD students because it's very technical. So that brings in doing like particle simulations, blowing things up, all the fun stuff. So there's no shortage of things you can get into, but I would say, UI UX is not a bad place to start either. Motion graphics is definitely something that they try to do a lot of in different areas. I worked on Pac Rim, the second Pacific Rim, and that one had a lot of motion graphics in it. And there's actually not a lot of people in the industry who naturally have that ability. And we found ourselves kind of like scrambling to hire some motion graphics experts. So definitely a skill set that can still be useful.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem.
Did you find like getting a job after graduation very difficult? Like how many rejections did you go through before like you actually got a job?
I don't know. I think Karen might have had a similar thing. I had co-ops. I was at Shopify for my co-op, which that was a trip to get. But once I was in there, the way I look at co-ops is I'm going to make myself so invaluable to this team that when I leave, you're going to be scrambling to call me and replace me. So I actively use it as you will hire me when I'm done. Which part of that was also being picky about the jobs I applied for. Some jobs very clearly only hire you as co-op students and they just have a revolving door of them. Those were my last resort jobs. I went really hard on anything that would keep me on professionally later first. And when I was scrambling at the end, I ended up working at Carleton. But that work I spent, trying to get into these like long-term career jobs was worth it, because then I kind of got to like not worry about applying to jobs my last year. So if you're in co-op, highly recommend really looking at them and saying like, do they look like they hire these people full-time later? Will I have a mentor? Will they be training me and not just saying like, okay, go sit in the back corner, you're making posters all year. That kind of work will help you figure out like how to get a job long-term after.
Yeah, I would second that for sure. I was in the same boat as Nicole, having done co-ops. So I did all my co-ops at the same VFX company in Montreal and was extra lucky. I essentially had a contract signed for my graduation before I left my last summer term. So that's like the one end of the spectrum where you can get really lucky in how you play your co-op game. Obviously not everyone's in co-op. So, and even co-op students, there will be rejections and there will be delays in getting a job. Plenty of my friends from school who didn't do co-op had a similar struggle, and it took them time, and it varies, and it depends on kind of how open you are to trying kind of different things, or how specific you're kind of looking into one area, or what the industry is. So it really all depends, but don't be too discouraged by it. Definitely keep trying and just throwing your resume out there, and whatever networking you're able to do, whether that's generally out in the industry, whether it's something like this with other, BIT people, it will all help you kind of get somewhere good.
I want Jessica to be able to ask her question, because she had her hand up from before and we kind of jumped the queue.
Okay, thank you. Mine is like a bit more related to like the resume. So like, let's say I'm in like IMD, and I guess like a lot of like a big part of my like application is like my portfolio work and my projects. And I'm in the process of making a portfolio website, but I was wondering if I wanted to, was it worth it to like maybe add an extra page to my resume about like specific projects, or just like push people to like go to my portfolio website where I'm able to go into like a lot more detail and have them like, I would rather have them like learn about my projects from like my portfolio website instead of just having it like briefly explained on a resume where I would have to also add like an extra page.
Seeing images when people talk about their projects, or if it's code, like here's my GitHub. Because like even if there's flaws, it's like, look, you made something that works. I want to go test it out. So I would say when it comes, especially with IMD, because a lot of what you're doing is like, I made a video game. I don't want to see screenshots of this video game. I absolutely want to see this. Even if I can't run it, I want to be like, wow, that's really cool. And that is really hard to get across in a resume format. So I would push you to really focus on that portfolio piece. I click any link that I see, and especially if it's a one-page resume. So I'm like, there's a link, I'm gonna go see it. If it's a two-page resume, I'm like, well, I might have spent enough time on this already. Like, I'll see it, but I'm more committed when there's like, I want to know more.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I so basically like focus on making like the portfolio really nice and like interesting to read. So, and push it towards like posting it on somewhere where I'm able to show the work. Sure. Okay, thank you.
It's also, when you build a portfolio website, that is like a presentation in itself. You built a website for it. That shows a level of taste and mind. Like,
it's not exactly like building a website, but I'm using like Adobe Portfolio, so I don't have to. But yeah.
I worked in like customer service doing website updates for people. You have no idea how many people cannot change the color of text. So don't undervalue your skills. Just the fact that you can set something up simple is still a skill set that a lot of people who work in tech, who are in the more of like the idea side, don't actually know how to do.
Okay, yes, thank you so much. Thanks.
Matt, you had a question?
Oh yes, thanks. I guess also kind of a reminder to people coming to this to please register for BitSock membership if you haven't already. Sorry, but yes, I have a question. I guess probably more so for Taryn, since she's at EA right now, but I'm looking to kind of go into video games and kind of games industry stuff when I graduate, and hopefully for my next co-op position. But kind of a lot of my experience is kind of more so in the software development side of things, a bit of VR stuff. But how, if I kind of want to go into the game design and narrative design side of things, how would you best to recommend I translate that.
I was interested to see where you were going because I was like, that's amazing experience. So like, don't downplay that experience that you have, and definitely don't. If I were to give you guys like my first co-op, I was a junior developer. I was in a software team. I don't touch code anymore. And it was a 4 months where I realized like, oh, I don't want to code all day, every day. It's not for me. But having that skill set is huge for getting into any industry. Anyone with a software background is hugely in demand. And I would say for industries, anything kind of big tech, since it's highly competitive to get into any of them, if you're able to get in somewhere, regardless of if it's the dream position, as long as you get in, and then you can start networking within that company and start figuring out where exactly you want to be, making connections with people in those roles, is vital. And if you're still kind of in a co-op stage, bonus, you know, if you can kind of get in at that level and start kind of just seeing where you want to be, is a good way to do it. To get more into the design side of things, definitely kind of building up an element of an art portfolio, I would say. But our designers, I say this, I've been at EA for 7 months, and like I said, my background's really more VFX, and I'm not a gamer myself, so I'm very displaced working at a gaming studio. So I'm no expert yet, but our designers have actually been shockingly young to me, I'll say. So I'm working on FIFA right now, and I was expecting that these designers would be like a bit more like experienced industry vets. And maybe that's me comparing to VFX, where the supervisors are typically within that range. But I'm working with some pretty young guys who are like, this is how we want FIFA to look this year. I'm like, okay. I'm managing a team of artists to kind of make that happen. So follow the passion for sure, but utilize the background you have on the technical side of things, because that will help you get in, and then it will help you kind of branch out.
Weirdly, I have something for you, even though I work nowhere near games. I have a little side hustle on the side, I'll call it side hustle. I run a not-for-profit for a game called Blaseball. It's a little browser game with like fake baseball, but it's entirely narrative experience. So I run like a fake baseball store. And part of that is I do a lot of interesting work with the narrative team on that game, and the indie game sphere. And from what I remember when they did a resume thing for the people who play this game, a lot of the talk about narrative is just getting involved in narrative spaces, first of all. So you can network through like the things like mine, but like doing TTRPGs are really big when it comes to a narrative portfolio, because it shows that you understand how to use simple mechanics to tell a story. So that's a good way to like kind of start building like your ability to tell, to like kind of build experiences, which is a lot of narrative. Anyways, if you have questions after, you can DM me. I can see if I can put some like Twitter like groups that usually talk about narrative design and like job applications around that.
Yeah, sure, that'd be great. I'd love that. Thank you.
Matt's
Thanks.
big into Twitter. Danny, I know you have your hand
boy.
up, but I just want to go to the chat first. Taryn, someone's asking about project management, how you can get into project management without having management experience first.
Definitely. Yeah. So, I mean, it starts at lower levels. My first job on a project management side of things was as a coordinator. So in VFX, we have production coordinators. They also have production assistants. That's another level you can kind of start at. Usually that's the more entry level. But essentially it was kind of a natural kind of OCD thing to have to know everything about anything going on in a project. That kind of appealed to me. I really just wanted to have my hands on everything, know what was going on. And it was more retrospective when I realized that at school, especially with all the group projects that we do, typically you'll have someone who takes lead on projects. And it was something I realized that I was kind of naturally doing. We were never in a position where we were like, or where I was saying, hey, I'm going to lead this project. It more just kind of happened. And for those of you who are more artist-based or technical or want to just hands-on do the work, probably fair to say you love it if someone else is kind of handling the paperwork or the nitty-gritty stuff that you don't want to do. And weirdly enough, I like doing that. So it kind of led me into this work. But I would look for coordinator roles or production assistant. Obviously, different industries might have different kind of hierarchies of what that all looks like. But like any role, there's a path to kind of follow and a ladder to climb. So you won't necessarily come in as a manager, but definitely check out coordinator roles for sure.
Danny, did that answer your question, or did you just put your hand down because I acknowledged you earlier?
mostly because you acknowledged me. Or sorry, mine's not really as much of a question, but just that's so funny. I've been playing Blaze Ball for like about a year now. So I'm like, holy cow. Like I try to get my friends into it and stuff. So we like talk about it and compete who's winning. But that's hilarious.
You can always
Where is the
mention
team
other stars.
based? Are you guys like all Canadian or?
No, I thought it was. No, it's just
Mhm.
me. And then I have two other people in the US, liars for joining the Canadian team.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a multidisciplinary like art team. That's really cool. Yeah. You
Okay.
can also talk about baseball anytime. That's my other hobby.
Yeah. Well, I just worry I might try to contact you after this Zoom because I want to know more about baseball.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's it.
absolutely.
Thank you.
I think this is kind of an interesting one. Somebody asked about using Wix and if people react negatively to that, or I assume by extension, any other kind of like content management system rather than, your own homegrown solution.
People don't have time. It's okay. Like, I understand you're okay. It depends on your hiring manager. I think if, when I'm looking at resumes, you're all in school, you have projects. It's also COVID. Everything is harder by default. Trying to even just like network over a video chat like this is way harder because Taryn can't be having a side conversation and neither can Shane, right? Like you're all kind of forced to listen to one person. It's very difficult. So when you use Wix, no, as long as you show that you understand how to use it for the proper UI, like test your things on mobile, the little details, I'm very pleased with whatever system you use.
Me, I think maybe the one exception would be if you're, applying for like a web development position, maybe you want to have that kind of showcase.
GitHub Sites is actually an also very okay thing to do because I think you can do custom design work through it. So that's worth looking at. And then you're on
and
GitHub.
Not have to pay for hosting.
What was that? GitHub Sites?
Yeah, I think GitHub Site. You can
GitHub Pages, I think it's called.
Yeah, that's great. And you'd be surprised how many people who go into tech have never made a GitHub account. Just having one by default is like a big selling point for a lot of
Hopefully
people.
they won't even check. They just like see that you have it and you're like, oh yeah, I have a GitHub. Empty.
I was gonna ask, do they care if the name of my GitHub account is like not my actual name? Like it's like, okay.
If it's not inappropriate, you're fine. Like just make sure that someone can tag you in it at work.
Okay.
Actually, I have a little bit of a funny anecdote to share. So at Facebook, when you create when you like work at Facebook, you give them like what the name you want to have in their like internal system, like your username for your email and stuff like that. And you can just like choose whatever you want. And so I kind of went online. I was like, I wonder, like, can you just put whatever you want? And people were saying that, yeah, you can, but if you're going to put something really silly, you better be sure to back it up, because if your name is like Cookie Monster 99 and you're like not performing well, it's just like going to come across as really, really annoying and like you're wasting their time kind of thing.
I used my store name as my handle, so everyone had to accidentally buy things from me. So like do whatever you want when it comes to like a lot of, okay, not whatever you want. If you're working in government, it's going to be a bit different than like you're working at Shopify. It's got startup culture, so you can kind of get away with anything. I think too, also your handle's a great way to show like your personality a little bit. Do something fun, make a little brand name.
I did see here, Nick, people were asking about like Shopify and stuff like that. I don't know if you wanted to comment on that, because maybe that's not particularly I don't know if you feel weird about representing it or whatever, but
not at all. I've been there for 6 years, so I'm pretty much a dinosaur at this point. I'd say it's interesting working for a company that I started, I think, a month after they went public. Which is an interesting time to join a company because you get a little bit of the startup experience and a little bit of it's a company experience. So depending on people who've had their co-ops, if someone's worked at a startup, you'll know that it's frantic. Anyone can kind of build what they want and everyone's doing 5 different jobs. There's never enough people. and you don't really, everyone kind of knows what's happening, but it's like spiraling out of control slightly at all times. So it's fast paced, it's fun, everyone kind of becomes buddies. As a company starts to form, more process comes into place. And so watching a company go through growing pains because they're growing really fast, but they didn't have process is really interesting. Shopify still has a lot of that like friendly relations, like kind of experience in workplace culture. We had the offices, but because it's grown so much, they've had to pivot. It's fully remote. They're never doing offices again. So that's great if you want to live literally wherever. They have a subsidiary, but it's not great if you're someone who really needs an office to kind of go in and work with people. The culture is very open. Everyone has access to most things on Slack. So it's great if you want to jump between different parts of your career. I have been a front-end developer, customer service person, a plus front-end. So I worked on Kylie Jenner's site. So that was kind of neat on like that launch. So like there's some cool stuff you get to work on. And then now I'm working in like context management. So I manage the internal documentation. And I don't need a degree for any of that. They don't care if you have a degree or not, but it's nice if you have one. And it's just they hire whoever looks good enough for it. So it's great if you don't know what you want to do, you want to try a bit of everything, you want to build up experience. But if you want to go on something really focused, I'd say looking at like a really set up company with like really set standards for jobs is probably more aligned with what you want. I hope that answers the question. Yeah, you can also you can always link your GitHub on your resume. LinkedIn.
I just shared everybody's LinkedIn. I hope that's okay. So, I mean, I assume that if you don't want unsolicited requests, you can just deny them. So,
there you go.
Yeah. Anybody have any more questions for our panelists?
You mentioned that you got into a VFX company. How did you get in? Like, what about your portfolio impressed them, or how was your portfolio?
I didn't even have one.
Okay.
It was really tricky. The industry's changed a lot over the past few years as well. I just posted in the chat, so I'm not keeping track of who's asking. What is it? No. Okay, so I got asked about, or there was the LinkedIn comment on, are we comfortable with connecting there? And so LinkedIn was huge for me when I was doing my co-op search. Knowing I wanted to get into VFX, and knowing the co-op program didn't necessarily have those connections to set me up with something through the system, I was like, okay, I need to figure out how to attempt to get in on my own. So on LinkedIn, I managed to just find a bunch of recruiters from a bunch of companies, and was sending out wild unsolicited messages until someone got back to me. Prior to that, there was a summer where I'd gotten in touch with an alumni from IMD who was working at a studio in Vancouver. I think it was after my first year, and since I'm from Vancouver, I went home from the summer. I managed to get me an internship at his studio for a couple months. So that helped to kind of say like, oh, I've been in a studio for a couple of months. And so when this one recruiter, they were opening a new studio in Montreal. It's called MPC. They were opening a new branch in Montreal. And so they were looking around and they were like, oh, we saw you did like a couple months of being like a pipeline assistant. Like, we've got this software job that we could potentially bring you in as, which, like I said, not a natural coder. So I was like, okay, and then had mad imposter syndrome for 4 months, but did it. And again, it's like those breakthrough moments you're kind of looking for. So really just focus on the network. I mean, it depends on your role too. Obviously, if you're like targeting an artist stuff, yes, have a portfolio. That will definitely be kind of needed. But just dig around. I kind of was neurotic and had these spreadsheets of like all these studios and then like who potential contacts were. It was stalkery, but it ended up paying off. So yeah, I'll always kind of bring it back to networking, meeting people, whether that's alumni, networking.
I want to tack on the LinkedIn thing in saying that at one point or another, all of our panelists today were cold contacts on LinkedIn. So
from like, you mean?
from me, or I think Kieran maybe reached out to Nick, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, I got like a cold message and I was like, yeah, of course I'll be here. This happens, like it's impossible to find people for these panels. I'll always show up.
Yeah. And Shane's old reliable. He was here last year. Everyone, they're probably sick of him by now. They're probably like, can you get somebody else next year?
They should be.
But really, like, the best thing to do, I would say, go on LinkedIn, connect with your professors like Chris Jocelyn or whatever, and then just like sort by, like, go through their connections and just see all the students who they connected with. And there's all sorts of like filtering stuff you can do on LinkedIn that's like pretty advanced. Like, you can sort for connections that are like second degree. So it's like you have a mutual friend in common, aka Chris Jocelyn or another professor. And just like look for people who you think are interesting or cool and just message them. Like, what's the worst they could say? Like, oh no.
You'll get ghosted a lot. Don't get me wrong. I got ghosted so much. Like 9 out of 10 of the messages I sent never got a response. So it's not foolproof, but it's better than nothing.
You'd be impressed. Okay, my little thing is like, engage in your hobbies if you have the time. There are ways to work in networking with your hobbies without like pushing it or anything like that. If like I got involved in baseball and I started networking, people are game designers, and I'm like, oh, tell me about that. And suddenly now we're buddies, and they're like, if you ever want to work in games, talk to me. You build these connections just by being interested in other people and showing passion. The amount of opportunities that you would never see posted online are astounding. My job at Shopify wasn't posted. I just cold emailed Shopify saying, hey, can I work here? And it worked out for me. But that's kind of like, there's a level of confidence, but also a level of like, I know someone here who can vouch for me because I've shown interest in their life. There's a lot of value in that. So like, do weird stuff. Participate in like the Boss Baby Symposium and like put together a fake research paper about Boss Baby. Like I've met people who like made connections through that. You don't know where these things will take you.
Okay, I think we're gonna wrap it here. If you have any more questions, you can reach out to the panelists, like they said. Make sure you grab those LinkedIn's or just like Google them, or you could just ask me after on Discord or whatever. Gonna end the recording. And thank you for coming, everyone. Really appreciate you here. And thank you very much to all of our panelists who took time out of their busy days. Like, these people have real jobs and they only get these 2 days off. They get 2 days off.
You'd be surprised how much more free time you have when you're employed than you do in school. If anything, congrats, thanks to all of you for finding any time in your days.
All right. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.